Hey guys, Brittleman945 here. Welcome back to another video. This video is going to be part 9 of my One Piece reviews. And today I am reviewing, I don't know if it's quite the I don't think it's quite the first half, but it's, it's like the first 50 episodes of, Dressrosa. Um, And I'm still not exactly sure on how exactly I want to split it all up, but I feel like where I stopped right now is kind of like a good first stopping point to make a first review part to talk about because oh my god, there is a lot to talk about with this arc. Um, General thoughts. I think it's fucking awesome. I think this arc slaps hard. It's really really good at like probably the best of any art I've seen thus far. It's the best at juggling so many different things at so like s- like the same time. Um, because within a given at a certain point within a given series of episodes, you would have Luffy fighting at the Colosseum. You have Sanji doing his thing. You have Zoro and Kinemon doing their thing. You have Giola attacking Nami and the other Straw Hats on the Thousand Sunny. You have Doflamingo getting chased by Law. You have Robin and Usopp and the Tantana on Green Bit. And then you have Fujitora and the Marines as well. And yes, some of those things do mix together, but it's kind of like all of those things happening at the exact same time. And it's honestly kind of crazy how it manages to juggle all of them. But that's just like general thoughts. Um, I really, really like Dressrosa as a location. Um, it's clear it takes a lot of inspiration, like architecturally, from both Rome and big cities in Spain. And you can tell that based just on the language, like the action, the physical language of the people, and the fact that the entire country is kind of like romanticized essentially. You can tell that by the architecture, the way the people are acting. Um, and in general, the city has like so much charm and just romantic personality to it. It's extremely lively, feels very, very lived in. And although it's not explained immediately, usage of toys and how they interact is genius because it's just something that they just kind of throw in your face. And it's so many episodes before it's actually explained what happened. But the way that they handle the kind of ambiguity of slowly revealing the actual past to Dressrosa is amazing. And kind of how they also reveal how the toys fit into that with the flashback of how they get their memories back, how suddenly there's gaps in people's memories. I think the way that they scattered that out is genius. Um, and I love the dark cast of Dressrosa. I think that's probably the part where Doflamingo shines best as a villain so far in this arc. Um, and 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 it was just like one of the best backstory sequences in terms of um just pure amounts of tragedy and just the way that it managed to condense so much information while still keeping the same personality of Dressrosa and such. Um Now, speaking of Doflamingo, he is absolutely one of the biggest talking points of this arc. I've heard many people say that he's the best One Piece villain. And maybe I'm not far enough into Dressrosa yet. I don't think he's the best villain. What I do think is he is just simply an extremely good villain. Um, and not because he is extremely sympathetic or he has these like complicated like motivations or anything like that. The reason that I really love Bill Flamingo is for two main reasons. One, he is an extremely just fascinating character. Um, because he doesn't seem really affected by anything or anyone else. And and like when Law constantly tries to threaten him about like Kaido potentially like killing him for not producing a smile for like he just doesn't care. He just statistically laughs. Um, and like you even saw hints of this back in Marineford, where he was easily one of the most unhinged characters, and it wasn't really clear like what side he fully supported because he kind of went a little back and forth. And I love that part of Doflamingo back then, but here this is just like his chance to basically shine. Um, and and I think that his like perspectives on the ideas of justice and things like that, and his sheer amount of cunning that he has to be able to manipulate the world government like he has is genius writing. And then the second reason that I really love Doflamingo as a villain is he is just completely now, what I mean by this is he's quite literally just completely unhinged because even back in Marineford, you kind of saw a little bit of this, his unhingedness in the fact that he was very unpredictable, and that kind of behavior is absolutely continued to this part. Um, because every time you see him, he just appears to be sadistically laughing, sadistically confident that like nothing is going to go wrong. But at the same time, he's not the kind of generic villain that possesses a giant ego. Um, because he's extremely cunning and strategic and resourceful. Uh, And the way that he always seems to be able to bounce back from his plans failing, I also find to be really interesting. Um, um, I also love his string fruit powers. Um, it's kind of broken, honestly. I think the string fruit is probably one of the most unique devil fruit that has been introduced so far. Because the implications and like possibilities of what it can do, along with the fact I'm pretty sure it's a Logia fruit, mean that it is an extremely versatile fruit that can both control people like puppets and then also slice things up extremes. And you can see this in his fight with Law, and I think this is just another example of Bill Flamingo's just terrifying, unhinged nature and screen presence. Like the way that he just relentlessly pursues Law as if it's like a cat on an endless hunt for a mouse to eat. Um, it's just kind of this like constant presence of like, what is he going to do? And I love how my favorite thing about Doflamingo as a villain is absolutely how unhinged and just how unpredictable he is. And you get to see even more of this, as I kind of alluded to earlier, when it comes to the full history of Dressrosa and what actually happened, and how he basically just like and I love the lore reveal that that Dressrosa was actually before the Riku dynasty actually revealed ruled not ruled by the Don Quixote family, and so essentially his justification is he's taking back the throne for his family, even though it's not really how that sort of thing works. Um, and the way that and I love these kinds of like hero like conquerors, the hero stories. It takes a lot of inspiration, I believe, from Francisco Franco and his like conquer and his basically almost military dictatorship of Spain for many decades. Um, I love this kind of story trope um, and like just the pure evil lengths that Doflamingo is willing to go to are just insane. And I just love like how completely unhinged and just plain evil he is. And I think that is what Doflamingo does best is he's this unique, unpredictable character that also serves as an extremely an interesting, like plain, just plain evil villain. Um, so yeah, that was a major talking point of the arc. Um, Another character I really want to highlight that was introduced in this arc that I find absolutely awesome is Fujitora. Oh wow, oh, Fujitora is cool. Um, he has gravity powers, and that basically makes him insanely OP. And on top of the fact, he's number one, I love the fact he's blind. That's a unique character design we haven't seen before. And the fact he's an admiral, of course. Um and I love his introduction when he's like playing roulette or whatever that game was and essentially getting caught by definitely was men before Luffy steps in. Um and 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 uh and then he basically literally just destroys them by just like closing his sword and it creates a giant gravity hole. That's nuts. Um So yeah, Fujitora is awesome, and I love his like kind of unique sense of justice, where he clearly like is different from the other admirals in that, unlike Akainu, who literally just hates pirates for the sake of hating pirates, and Kizaru, who kind of feels like he can see what's going on, but he mostly just doesn't really care about it as much, and is just doing it for the funsies. It kind of seems like, at least that's the vibe I get from Kizaru, because he's my favorite of the three admirals. Um, Fujitora represents this extremely interesting perspective because he's clearly probably the most aware of the corruption that's going on, and it clearly makes him very mad that he has to put up with it. But he understands he's also naive and inexperienced because of the fact he came up through the world draft. Um, and I think his like perspective on wanting to destroy the seven warlords is so interesting. And I really can't wait to see where his like perspective on politics ends up going in future arcs. Um, now, it really felt like to me, a lot of different characters had their own chance to shine doing unique things during this arc, and I really liked that a lot. Um, I really like the idea of the dentata. I think that they're a unique idea for people, and I loved the relationship that Usopp had with them as the heroic leader Usalind, and I love how it's like a kind of different perspective on his um character arc of being someone who lied. This time it feels more bigger in scale because there's a lot of Tantana and they all held him in the same high regard. Um, and God Usopp is so funny. To me, God Usopp is absolutely hilarious and that was just like common gold. And it was so satisfying to see him finally take out Sugar and then see all the toys' memories reverted. That was so satisfying. Um, I really liked what they did with Sanji in this arc because they took his pervy nature, which I really wasn't a fan of, across Punk Hazard and Fishman Island. And they did a complete like 180 in terms of making an incredibly unique and interesting perspective of what he's able to do to a woman in this arc. Um because and how it also ties in with the very romantic, passionate, lively nature of Dressrosa as a country. Um and um and I really basically um Sanji runs into this dancer, like the dancer of danger named Violet, um, who we don't know much about other than the fact that she's being chased by the police, and Sanji takes an immediate attraction to her because of course. Um, and as such, they end up building up like a pretty serious chemistry, just like walk together. And then, in a shocking twist of events, Violet ends up betraying Sanji, revealing that she's actually a subordinate of Doflamingo, specifically a member of Trevor's army. Um, and I love how, even though Violet has these powers of the glare fruits, you can supposedly like see into men's every ideals and she like knows exactly what they're thinking. But I love the irony of the fact that Sanji is able to see through her more as a human than she could do with that devil fruit to him. I really like the chemistry that they have, and in general, I love how I love seeing Viola's, as her name is eventually revealed to be, like backstory with Dressers and how this fact she was the daughter of King Riku. Um, and and I just think that she's an extremely interesting character. And I really like what he got to do in this arc. I think it was a marked improvement over what he was given to do in the previous arcs. Moving on. I really like what Frankie was doing in this arc as well, and I love like his feeling like he had to do something to help Tada, and I love his just like sense of justice in how movie uses like, oh yeah, go ahead. Um, and I really like Frankie's fights. I think Frankie just in particular really shines in this arc. Um, Now the other big thing I feel like I have to talk about is the Colosseum. Because wow, it's basically One Piece's version of a tournament arc, and it's so freaking cool. Um, so there's the incredibly shocking fact that Jesus Burgess, the brawler dude from the Blackbeard Pirates, is there. which is just completely mind-blowing, um, and kind of crazy, um, but still really awesome because it's clear how much stronger he is now, and it's so cool. Especially when like later on, he like literally does a Conqueror's hockey infused punch. That is absolutely fucking epic. Um, I think it's really funny to see Luffy disguised as Lucy, and no one can seem to figure out who he is. There's a lot of standout characters I really want to comment on here. I loved seeing Bellamy again. Um, and the fact that he actually ended up visiting the Sky Islands is like a whole host of war implications and it's a really awesome, essentially closing of his character because like back in Jai he just refused to believe that someone like that actually existed and it changed his worldview on things, even though he literally lost all of his crew members. I really, really like that, honestly. Um and I also really like the character of Rebecca. I think that she's one of the most interesting side characters that's been introduced so far. And I love her backstory and her relationship with the toy soldier. Um, and you can also love the character of the toy soldier in general. I think he has such an interesting perspective on things, and the reveal that he is actually the gladiator in the statue, like the strongest gladiator, and Rebecca's father, is just like this. It's just provides this like such a nice conclusiveness to things. Um, we also later find out that Rookie the Knight, this like glider that's a really good swordsman, actually is King Riku himself. And I love this idea that King Riku is participating in the gladiator tournaments because like I just think it gives him such a unique perspective on his character, and I love this like idea that he feels like he's failed. It's just really good character writing. I also love Bartolome. He was introduced in this arc, and he is absolutely hilarious. I love just how completely, very unhinged in the comedic sense he is. Um, when he literally like he's in front of the entire audience, and then he uses barriers to protect himself. I like his devil fruit being the barrier fruit. I think that's really funny. And then the fact is later revealed that he is like the Straw Hat's biggest fanboy is so enormously funny. Um, uh, I really love Bartolomeo. Now one fight in particular I really want to highlight is Luffy versus Don Chinzhao. Because I think it's probably the most entertaining fight that happens in the Colosseum. Um, and I really, really um like I think Dong Xinjiao as a character idea is just so funny because he's constantly going on about I will curse you, your children and your grandchildren. And I think it's so funny what happened between him and Garp and how you got to see just like prime Garp with his armament hockey completely destroy um Don Chinchao's like drill head, and then the fact that the fight ends by his drill being deformed, and then the drill breaks the stage and he falls into the water. I love that. I think it's so funny. And then the fact that the stage takes 15 minutes to repair. But that fight used all sorts of like insane uses of like all three kinds of hockey, especially like the Armament and Conqueror's hockey fused attacks were especially crazy. Um, and then this and then all this talk of how like Dong Xinjiao had a 500 milliberries, which made him like more dangerous than a lot of the Worst Generation members when they were first introduced. And it's just this kind of interesting indication of how, even though Luffy has trained a lot, he's ready for the new world, how much farther he still has to go by comparison, and how Luffy knows he's ready for it, but he still has just further heights to reach, essentially. And I really, really like that dynamic of their fight. Um, 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 I think that's mostly what I want to talk about with the Colosseum. Just in general, like when I just love the fact that it's there and all the fights are just really, really cool. And there's just a whole bunch of it and it's just really satisfying. Um, and then, uh, possibly my absolute favorite thing about this arc so far is the fact that Sabo shows up. And now, granted, I did get it spoiled for me, the fact that he was alive and he ends up eating the flame playing fruit, but that does not make him any less awesome. And of course, they had to do sentimental callbacks to Ace and their relationship, and like seeing and Luffy seeing Sabo again that was alive was so amazing. I love that. Um, and then seeing them epically fight to get the flame bone fruit was awesome. Um, and I loved everything to do with that. Um, I also it was so cool. It was just satisfying to see him just like kick ass with his absolutely insane arm in hockey and learning he's actually second in command of the Revolutionary Army. I thought was especially awesome. Um, and just the build up to his reveal is absolutely amazing, and how he trades places with with Luffy. It's just amazing stuff, and him using the flame flavor is so awesome. Um, yeah, I think that about some of my thoughts so far on Dressrosa as an arc. And in terms of tier ranking, at least based on where I am right now, it's like sitting near the top of A tier. I think it's really, really, really good. I have been extremely entertained by Dressrosa as an arc. And even though I still have like some 65 odd episodes left, I'm really looking forward to see how it finishes. I don't know how I'm gonna, if I'm gonna just make a giant second part, or it's gonna be like two two more small reviews. I'm not really sure about that yet. I'll have to think about it. But for now, that is going to be my thoughts on the first part of Dressrosa. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later. Bye.